like, look, man, you only get one shot at this whole life thing. Let's make the best of it. And I think that clicked during slash post COVID when you truly realize, like, it sounds cliche, but it's not for granted. You got to take advantage of it right now.
Welcome to the Frontline Warriors Club, where we live it, not in it. Join us on this mission as we raise consciousness. You can find us on wearefrontlinewarriors.com. Now, before the show, let's take a moment to inhale, exhale, and let the show begin.
In this episode, we would like to introduce you to Renard Walker, a man of action. He is currently travel nursing, planning a wedding, and studying to become a psychiatric nurse practitioner, all while launching his new vintage business called Straight Action. How does he juggle all these roles and stay motivated? Find out on this episode. Thank you, Renard, for being here. Can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I have been a nurse now, an RN, for about 4 years, traveled the last three, and last year started my own business, selling, specializing in vintage fashion. Also a student right now, Psych NP school, hoping to receive my graduate degree in a couple of years and become a mental health provider. And here we are, man.
And we want to have you on our show specifically for our fifth pillar. It's right now. It resembles action, and you seem like the type of guy. You're basically a man of action. So how do you stay composed and how do you stay busy? You have a lot of endeavors. You do a lot of things. You're in school. You're planning a marriage. You have a clothing brand. How did you get started in all that?
Yeah. So obviously it takes kind of a lot of planning, a lot of discipline, at the same 24 hours everybody else has. So the things that I implement consistently, I use the notes in my phone as kind of a to-do list. Then I have this week non-negotiables that have to get done. And pretty much night before, I'm planning it out almost to the hour, and just kind of chip away. I get a feeling of satisfaction by crossing different things off. Almost like nursing, you got to prioritize, and time management, kind of transferable. But the main thing is like maintaining that discipline, consistency every day.
And what motivates you? What's like your internal drive that's making Renard tick every day, waking up and getting excited for life?
So I definitely think that's a big one that I think it takes years to kind of figure out. We're not always motivated. Discipline is a habit that you kind of build over time. But to answer your question directly is kind of what's your why, right? The why can't just be the degree. The why just can't be, I want a successful business. The why are kind of the intangibles. I'm doing it for my family, for my significant other, for future generations, and to kind of break the generational stereotypes and that type of thing. And that kind of pushes you through on those days where that motivation is not there. I mean, even if you're disciplined, there's still days where it's like, it's still rough to get through. But if you keep in mind, like, the people you love and care about, and that you're doing it for them and to create a better life for you and everyone else, that helps me get through.
Yeah. And did you always have that why, or is it something that you've built over time, or maybe you had a time in your life where you just snapped and switched modes and you came up with this why, and then that was your driving factor moving forward?
I think what really clicked for me is kind of like just seeing patients every day, seeing nursing, and I also think getting older and just experiencing life. So you kind of see all these people we take care of, and you think, I don't want a life like them, and I'm fortunate enough to be in good health, obviously because of my life decisions and maintaining those life decisions. And kind of combining those and being like, look, man, you only get one shot at this whole life thing. Let's make the best of it. And I think that clicked during / post COVID, when you truly realize, like, it sounds cliche, but it's not for granted. You got to take advantage of right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I like how you mentioned the why, because you develop your own internal inertia to get you past any mental blocks, obstacles that you have, or those days that you just feel tired, right? Because willpower can only get you so far. You can force yourself through whatever you want to, and that motivation is going to come into waves, but eventually you're going to drain out your tank. And if you don't have that internal why that pushes you, you're not going to be as successful as you initially think you are by watching a
Mhm.
Joe Rogan or some Jocko Willink video on
100%.
YouTube and getting that pump.
Mhm.
So you mentioned the COVID time really set you to take action, right? And right now you mentioned. So what made you transition from nursing to wanting to start like your clothing line and the vintage stuff? Where was your ambition past that? Because most people are just satisfied with nursing. It's a great career, it pays the bills. Most people are content
Mhm.
with that.
So, two things. During COVID, you kind of realize, in working in nursing, it's kind of always being told what to do. And you're kind of the one who's forced to adapt. And yeah, the income is great, but there's a lot of pros and cons that come with that income, as far as, yeah, we only work 3 days a week, but I'm still I'm still tied to those 3 days a week. I'm still tied to this location, that location, even though we have more choices than the average. So there is that part of, like, wanting control over my own life and making my own life decisions.
Mhm.
Then, unfortunately, my mom, nothing serious, but she was in and out of the hospital with just different issues. My fiance's family had different stuff, and we needed to visit frequently. And I realized, if I can create a lifestyle where I can control my and still generate income, I can be there for those different life events that we don't know may or may not happen.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, you can't do that with nursing. It's like, you call out sick, you're going to lose income, or you just have certain responsibilities. And I want to be there for those life events, whether they're positive, negative, or you just realize, I'm the oldest in my family. It falls on me. And I think just kind of recognizing real life as we get older, and having the freedom and availability to come, go, and do as we please for those we love, care about, it is what really kind of made me go all in.
Mm. And how was the transition like? Because you mentioned that working as a nurse, you're used to taking orders. You're almost, you could say, at the lower end of the totem pole, where if a problem arises, you got to contact a physician, then have them put an order to solve that problem. And now you're a business owner, so whatever problems come into play, you got to deal with them. There's nobody else you could really call. Maybe you could rely on your fiance or your family for some advice, but you're the one basically leading the plans, leading the charge, and you have to ultimately deal with those problems. So how was the transition from being a nurse and not really necessarily having to directly solve the problems to now being a business owner and having to directly fix those problems as they come in?
Yeah, I definitely think the transition's pretty crazy, because you go from structure or organized chaos in the hospital to, you're your own boss. So that requires a different level of accountability. Business kind of doesn't stop, so it's 24/7. And also kind of recognizing when to work, and kind of like giving yourself hours, so to speak, because otherwise you feel like you're constantly putting in and not really seeing a return on your investment of time. So I think making those adjustments, it's hard. It's hard. You make a lot of mistakes. You waste money. You waste time. Things don't pan out the way that you expect them to, and it's not guaranteed. I don't get to just swipe in and swipe out every day and know my earnings or know my schedule. Different things go this way, different things go that way.
Mhm.
So it's definitely tough, because I feel like you feel like you're putting in all this effort, and you want all these rewards, and you're like, this should have went this way, or that this should have went that way, and it doesn't.
Mhm.
And you have to be patient. You have to embrace the term delayed gratification, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the mindset that you had to explore, that you had to equip yourself with when it came to that transition and launching your own business. Because when Peter and I started, there's always these doubts of how things are going to work out. Will they like the product, right? Because the market decides essentially, and those
Right.
doubts could creep in, but you sometimes got to toss those aside and be like, hey, I feel confident with what I'm doing, and I'm going to stay true to the thing that I'm passionate about. So what mindset experiences or obstacles did you have to overcome during your 1 year transitionary period being a business owner?
I think a few different things. There's calculated risk. There is education. You have to educate yourself. You know, and if you're not going to go back to school and you're going to start your own business, there's still an education that comes with it. Nowadays, all that information is essentially free online in some way, shape, or form. So you have those opportunities. I think it's important to network, talk to like-minded people or people who have already been successful in what it is that you're doing. Ask others' opinions. What do you think about this? You know, get feedback. And I think mindset-wise, you need to understand it's not overnight 9 times out of 10. And although I try not to compare myself to X, Y, and Z business, but if you look within your field or even other fields, it's like 3 to 10 to 12 years until you really see the fruit of your labor across the board for most things. You take the ones that everybody knows, Amazon, the garage, that famous picture, Starbucks, I think they were declined like 240 plus times for their bank loan. You take all those ones and it's like, wow, we just see the Starbucks today, the Amazon today, or, you know, the Nike today. And it's not it. It's not realistic. It took X amount of time. And that's the part that requires that mental toughness or disciplined or big picture mentality of I'm going to work every day, brick by brick, and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. And did you have any support coming from anywhere, maybe your fiance or your family? Because I know when Matt and I first started, we didn't really. Well, first of all, my parents didn't even speak English, so they couldn't really support us on any kind of end, right? And we didn't really want to go to our parents for money either. Like, hey, mom, dad, can you help us invest in this podcast so we could, you know, grow eventually? So we didn't want to come up with that. So we kind of grew up without any kind of support, making this come into fruition. So I'm curious, have you got any support? Like, our parents did support us in like the background, like, yeah, you guys are doing great, things like that. But any kind of like tangible support, we didn't really have from anybody, and we had to kind of build it on our own, which then equipped us with this mindset of just being able to push through, you could say, dark times or through problems. So I'm curious if you had any support.
Yeah, so I was fortunate, and obviously travel nursing helps with the income, you know, to fund certain ideas within reason. And then as far as actual people who support, my fiance, thank God she lets me do what I do, because at one point our apartment looked absolutely insane until I ventured off and got a storage unit. So she tolerates my nonsense in our apartment. You know, at least when I was getting it off the ground, until I had the business income to pay for a storage unit and a place to hold items. A friend of mine, he has a truck, so he helped transport to and from for different venues and pop-ups and that type of thing. And then my cousin is he's kind of like my silent partner, helps with different pieces and parts of the business. And I was fortunate to be connected with my barber, who recommended me to a graphic designer who sees the vision, kind of pro bono, will help design things up front, with getting his when the company prospers type of deal.
Yeah.
So definitely fortunate in that realm. On you know, it's been mutually beneficial. My accountant, I help give her some business through our travel nurse friends who need accountants, and she helps to give me tax advice and LLC advice. And so leveraging your network, definitely something I recommend to any other aspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, see, it's a very, very strong thing, because many people think that, okay, I see Renard and it's just Renard doing everything. But when you speak about it, there's a lot of moving parts. And I just want to emphasize that when you want to start things, maybe a business or a new passion or a new hobby, you don't have to go into it alone. I know I mentioned that Matt and I really had no support, but now that I think about it, we actually did have support. We had a Luke that came on basically right off the bat. We have Mac that helps us with the finance. We have Amanda that now helps us with like the design and things like that. So now that I look at it, we did have a little bit of support. Yeah, and with that, and that little support goes a long way. Like you said, using network, using your family, your friends, your cousins, just talking to them, because maybe you share the same ideas. Maybe you have a different project in mind, but it's still the same idea and you can work on it together. And that's when things are more successful, because you have more brains working on operations and you have more ways of succeeding. And it's like when you're starting to fall, you have somebody that can catch you, because you're working with somebody directly and you're helping each other both. You're helping each other out in this great venture. So if one of you guys succeeds, everybody technically succeeds.
And I just want to add on, this is a good point, because in school we learned this mentality of survival of the fittest. I'm number one, he's number two. And it's more about being very self-centered and selfish in a way. But once you get out of school, that's not how the world runs. It's all about networking and helping yourself prosper and helping other people prosper through that, giving value. And you're going to have, and that's going to reciprocate. A lot of
Reciprocity.
freaking Polak stuff, man. I can't pronounce it. Bernard, maybe you can help us here. Law of reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, there we go. On the money. So anyways, you give back, and in turn, the value is going to come to you. It's not about you doing things on your own. And I feel like maybe we first started, we kind of had that mindset for a bit. It's like, yeah, let's just be number one. Let's be number one. But no, it's about all networking, all, sharing the pie in a way, and the wealth is going to come from that law.
Right. And even like nursing, I'm sure there was a point in your nursing career where you were just the main person doing everything, and you're a solo flyer. You're just doing everything for the patient. You're not really too focused on a teamwork. And then you finally kind of settled down and we're like, hey, maybe I should ask for help. And then when you ask for help, nursing became a little bit easier, because you finally got some help instead of being that one solo flyer trying to take care of everything. Because that's one thing that I struggled with as a nurse. I wanted to do everything myself, because then I knew it got done and it got done right. But then, yeah. But then the thing is, I always got behind. I always didn't have enough time to do everything, and I felt like shit. I felt more stressed out. I felt like I wasn't doing a good job. And then when I finally asked for help, I was like, damn, this teamwork approach to nursing is a lot more valuable than being this one Indian or this one chief doing everything. So it's just like crazy how life just shows you how important teamwork is, and you can't really build anything by yourself.
100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You'll go crazy if you try to do it all on your own. You'll go crazy. You'll feel like a failure. You'll be sleepless. You'll just be a mess, and then your productivity and your creativity halts. If you try to give it all without any help from other people. And unfortunately, something you got to learn from. You almost have to go through that phase to kind of appreciate the help you have, the circle, or the power of like delegating or tasking out.
It's almost like sometimes less action leads to more action.
Yeah, I agree. Especially quality over quantity. You know what I mean? It's just, and you got to remember, there's no hard deadlines for the most part when you're starting out. It's all your internal hard deadlines that you're giving yourself. Not like the world's waiting, like, oh man, when's Bernard going to do X, Y, and Z? But I'd like to hope that one day it's like that, but right now, you got to recognize that and kind of hit the brake a little bit.
Yeah. So how did you get past the deadline approach? Because we always have deadlines in mind. Sometimes we overthink things and we kind of feel bad that we don't make these deadlines. And that's like a reoccurring theme. You could say, I'm sure you've had it in your mind. So how do you get past that? Hey, maybe this deadline isn't the main thing I should focus on. It's just getting the task done at hand.
So one of the things I took from a marketing class is kind of like customer or consumer centered approach. So not necessarily the deadlines, but just maintaining that value in those relationships. So they don't know kind of what's on the forefront. So I feel like as long as you maintain that communication and transparency, especially with the generation now, they appreciate that transparency just as much as they appreciate the sickest new product, and that's just kind of the mindset that I've been keeping. because you also realize too, like I've rushed to make deadlines, and and it showed.
Being your own worst critic essentially, and beating yourself up
Right.
for it. Going the route of you going into Psych NP, have you always been fascinated with psychology and human behavior? Where did that spark came to be?
So funny, healthcare was totally different when I started. What now? 6 years ago, I I got accepted in nursing school, and I really wanted to work in the hospital. You know, I really wanted to be a nursing assistant or a tech. And everybody was like, "Well, psych's always hiring. Nobody else would hire, but psych's always hiring." So I actually started out in the psychiatric emergency room as a tech the same day I started nursing school. So that was my first intro into nursing. And oddly enough, I really enjoyed it. I was really fascinated by these diagnoses on paper that sound fictional. Honestly, it sounds like it's out of a science fiction movie being in these patients and displayed by these patients at my shifts. And, you know, having an opportunity to help or get them kind of back on track, to try to get them a second chance. So it's always been in my head. And then, you know, you listen to all the critics, don't go into psych right out of school, and learn medical and clinical stuff first, which I still agree with, because I think there's a lot of side effects and all that of drugs, different underlying things that are beneficial to know in the psych. But starting out in the psych ER, it always stayed in my mind, and I always enjoyed it. And I was like, you know, I'm not gonna listen to everybody else. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. Psych is definitely a very interesting thing because I was a big fan of Jordan Peterson when I was younger. I'm still a big fan. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he's a psychologist from Canada, a really good guy. But the thing that was crazy is, like, I was in psychology class, and my professor was like, okay, we all see this world around us where we see trees, we all see the grass, we could all point to that tree. But it's crazy how, well, I don't want to say it's crazy, but it's interesting how you could see that tree and you could go through your life having this tree on your side, but then the same person sees the same tree, but then his life is like completely different. It's so like, it's crazy how these objective things in life are objective and they just are how they are, but the way you interpret them can be completely different. And how everybody is basically shaped by their environment in a sense. Like, it goes back to the nurture versus nature kind of thing. And the thing is that we could see the world all the same way together. You know, if we're not colorblind, we can see that the leaves are green, but the way you interpret the thing is completely different, just based on the way you think and the way you've been raised, and just the way your thoughts are aligned. That was always very fascinating, how someone could be depressed and could be wealthy, and someone could be happy and could be wealthy. They could both make $1 million, but someone can't find happiness, but the other person can't find happiness. So it's just like, it was always so interesting to me how you can have these tangible things that we could all agree on that are good or are bad, but then in someone else's mind, it's completely different. That was always so
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's an interesting take.
Mm.
I'm not familiar with that particular person, but that's a really interesting take. And it's fascinating. Like, one person could be poor and happy, the other person could be rich and unhappy. And, you know, based on our societal norms and influences, we see kind of the opposite, you know, which makes psych and mental health very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think because we're humans and we're fascinated by the unknown, I think that's what draws a lot of people into psychology. Because, like like I said, is you have this life and you might live this life together and you can see these objective things, but you truly don't know what's going on in someone's mind or someone's head, or that thought or those thoughts. You might want to tap into that because it's the unknown. You wanna know how they think, you want to know how they feel, you want to just understand that person's mind. But it's so difficult
Right.
because it's
Right.
so, because even though they could go through the same life events as you, their mind could be completely different.
Yep.
That's why it's very powerful, because it comes down to beliefs,
Mhm.
right? Think and therefore I am. And since we're talking about the pillar of right now and action and trying to be successful in a sense, it's very good for anybody listening that wants to prosper in different avenues other than from career. It's really important to define what does success mean to you versus what does productivity mean to you, because a lot of
Right.
times we think success is this tangible money, $5 million. But what if it's really feeling worthy of yourself? And success really isn't the
Yes.
5 million. It's you trying to be that thing, trying to have that X amount to feel worthy of yourself because you keep externalizing yourself. Or
Yeah.
what does productivity mean to you, right? You could be hustling every single day, putting 12 hours a day, being tired, working yourself down to the dirt. But what is productivity? What if it's you recharging and taking that self-care day or going on that date? So this is something I journaled about before, just defining success and productivity, because I put a lot of external value on other things versus internalizing it. And I'm just speaking from experience.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that, because I also think self-reflection is so valuable, because it's easy to fall into that human nature of success being someone else's success, not necessarily what really makes you feel successful or happy or
Mm.
productive. And it's so easy to be influenced by the others around you or the status, or but you got to kind of find that peace with yourself and then work at it without the outside distractions, which is a lot easier said than done. It takes clear, consistent action every single day to maintain that mindset. And it takes time.
Yeah.
And when you prioritize your mental health, how do you do that exactly? How do you stay sharp every day? What is your way of unwinding and filling your own cup up?
So, several pieces. I think knowing and understanding when you need a break. As much as I'd like to believe that I'm invincible Superman, 3 hours of sleep, it could just give you 16 hours every day. I can't. So recognizing, all right, it's time for me to kind of unplug, anywhere from one to two, once or twice every other week. I try to do that in blocks of time. And I also know my attention span with my work. I'm good for 3 or 4 hours, and then I need a break. Break can be exercise. The break can be catching up on something like a documentary, or reading something that I'm genuinely interested in, as opposed to needing to read because of a task at hand. Um, Making that list, and also kind of like rewarding yourself as you go along the way, and listening, having good supportive people in your corner help with that as well. I stay in pretty close contact with my cousin. He's almost like the brother I never had, and he kind of reminds me, like, look, man, the business was here a year ago. He's like, remember when you were tie dyeing shirts in your bathtub, and counting and being excited about those little wins help with the mental piece. Like, wow, I did do that.
Mm.
And I think too often we get caught up in what's next, what's next, what's next, as opposed to kind of just slowing down, seeing what we actually accomplished. And I think writing stuff down and kind of looking back is nice too.
Mm.
Seeing what your goal was, where you are with your goal. And those things, man, for me, if I see and feel that progress, it's like, all right, I got a little bit more fire again.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to take a little journey down to maybe a darker part of your life. And I'm sure we've all been in a dark place in our lives, maybe when we weren't so happy. So can you maybe recall a time, maybe not to tell us the exact time, but a time when you were struggling, maybe mentally or physically, and kind of how you got out of that run? Because I know from personal experience, there was a point in my life where I was, not doing the best, like mentally, a lot of negative loops. So I started to listen to more positive speakers. I tried to draw my mind with positive sayings, with positivity, just because there was so much negativity in my mind. I tried to have it like flip flop, because you know that when you're stuck repeating the same negativity over and over again, it becomes a norm. And once it becomes a norm,
Yeah.
you're kind of shit out of luck, and that's your new norm. Now you have to change out of that new norm into something else, so that becomes your norm. So I drowned myself with Jordan Peterson. I read a lot of self-help books, a lot of positive speakers, a lot of positive motivation, and I also went to the gym. So there was a point in my life where I was like, okay, this isn't going well. What can I do right now to kind of change that? And I used those positive speakers, and the gym was probably a huge proponent of my success to get over that nasty hump. So how did you get over a dark hump, or when you're really struggling in life, what do you turn to get past that?
So my big go-to consistently and always it aligns with both of your podcasts is exercise. Exercise is always my go-to. Basketball is my first passion. My knees don't like basketball anymore. So the gym is what really helps me feel good about myself. And I'm big on the self-help and the positive motivational stuff. Les Brown, Eric Thomas, and those are my bread and butter, man. David Goggins as well. And even if it means task to task, like I've been in some spots where when, especially going through nursing school, you got to hit certain grade markers. Real life is going on because I went as a second career, and I was working two jobs that I absolutely hated, but I needed to work them to make ends meet. I mean, so I would listen to each task. I'd have to listen to one of those guys to get me through. And I mean, like, you're talking like I'll never forget this, man. I drove from one job to the next job crying, listening to Les Brown. That's how bad it was. Like, that's how rock bottom it was. But I was like, dude, if you can make it through this, at least in my head in this situation now, the rest of the stuff is nothing. And that's how low personally I felt at that point in my life. And another quote that stands out to me, I think it was either it was Steve Harvey actually. He said, I want you to look around and each of you are 100% survivors on your worst day. And bro, all of us are still here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, obviously when you're going through those things, a lot easier said than done. Exercise, listening to those things that resonate with you, even if it means consistently get through the day, task to task, job to job. And that's how I did it.
And I also love what you mentioned a few minutes ago when you said self-reflection. I think that's a powerful tool as well with that quote that you just said, because a lot of times we're always just moving forward onto the next. We're always in the gap of what's missing in our life because we have this to-do list versus taking time to reflect, journal of how far you came, give yourself some damn gratitude, some positivity into your life that you've come through this, or AKA, hey, I've done this before, whether it's a challenge, whether it's this dark obstacle, family death, whatever it is, you passed it. You are the survivor. You survived your darkest day. Therefore, what else is next? I can take this on. And just give gratitude to the past and know that whatever's about to happen, there's going to be abundance in your life. Just a little mindset shift.
And it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
It's not going to last forever. It seems like forever, but you're going to get through it.
How do you stay mentally well? I know you mentioned learning how to take breaks, but do you meditate? Maybe do you throw on some yoga pants and do some yoga? What do you do? Do you do any specific things to just bust on the spandex, bust out a YouTube video, right in front of the window you got out there, for the neighbors. So is there any things you take or do that specifically help you with your mindset besides just taking like a break and just saying, hey, let me just step away from all this and give some time to yourself?
Yeah, I've gone in waves with meditation. Especially if I'm really not feeling my normal self, I'll meditate. I also have decided to take on yoga. No spandex yet. I didn't buy spandex. I did buy a yoga mat, but no spandex yet. And my relaxation go-tos are my pedicures, man. That's my me time.
Yeah, the pedicures are clutch. I've got like a handful in my life, and it's first time I get a pedicure, I was like, man, I don't know if I should be doing this. Like, kind of weird. I don't want no Asian ladies touching up on my feet and stuff. They're like brushing. I'm ticklish. But it was very relaxing. I was like, damn, because like your feet are the least taking care of things in your body. You could say, and it's almost like if you could take care of your feet, you could take care of anything else. Your feet are always so beat up, and that's probably one of the most appreciative things you could do for your body. We walk on our feet. We use our feet for everything, for survival. Imagine having to walk on your knees. That would suck. Or walk on your hands. You wouldn't be able to do it. Right? Yeah. And we wear shoes all the time that maybe aren't the best fitting, aren't the most comfortable. we're charting, we're standing up, we're doing all this thing, and we take our feet for granted. Like the most taken for granted limb in our body, 100% is our feet. And we just as dudes especially feel so feminine going to do a pedicure, but it's one of the most relaxing things. You're just sitting there and you have like just people work on your feet. It's weird, but it's nice.
That's my thing. And then if it's hard for me to do, but if I could travel without my laptop, that's a real recharge win right there, because you're not inclined to work. It's like you force yourself to, because I don't mind working on my phone, but I like need the screens. I need to do this. I need to do that. I feel like it takes me too long to do what I got to do on my phone. So I won't work on my phone if I don't have my laptop.
That's a good one.
We should look about that.
One last question we'd like to ask all of our guests. So if you had one piece of advice last time to share with the world, what would you share?
Last piece of advice to share with anyone, I would say whatever it is that you think about every day, every other day, just do it. Just set up a plan and do it, because everything is not always going to be right. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough support. You're never going to, it takes about 1,000 tasks typically to get to what it is that you want. And if you're thinking about it every day, you probably thought about it over 1,000 times already. Just do it.
Yeah, it's very powerful, because there's never that perfect time, and you're never going to right. And it's never just a approach that shoots up. It's always gonna go through ups and downs. That's why I think people are scared of doing things, because they envision this. Okay, I'm gonna have this perfect plan, and I'm gonna go perfectly up 100%, but that never happens. And then what happens is people get stuck on trying to perfect this plan. They never end up doing anything, because your plan's always going to fail at some point, and you're always going to have to go back to the drawing board and redraw it, fix this, fix that. And a perfectionist mindset to life is never going to work, because life isn't perfect. It's never perfect. It was never meant to be perfect. If it was perfect, we'd be in heaven, and you wouldn't have good days. You wouldn't have bad days. You would just be living in heaven.
Right. That's my best advice, man. Whatever it is you're thinking about all the time, just go. Grab what you got, go.
Yeah, it's real strong.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time, Renard. Appreciate all the advice and everything you brought to our listeners.
Thank you, guys. I love what you guys are doing on multiple platforms. I listen to you guys for my commutes, travel, pedicures. I put on a couple of nurses.
Hell yeah.
I'm looking forward to diving into the front line more. And I can't appreciate it enough that you guys had me on here. Thank you.
Awesome. And Renard, where can people find you?
So I'm mainly on Instagram, at @r__walk. And my business page is on there as well, Straight Action Vintage. And my DMs are always open for questions, advice regarding travel nursing, health insurance, fashion, entrepreneur, travel, business, accounting, whatever you want, man. Message me.
That's the guy.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show and want to support the podcast,
please subscribe, leave us a comment, or give us a like on all platforms.
We Are Frontline Warriors.